Make sure to follow Jaron's page at NYM_news for all the latest highlights, news, and stories regarding those good old New York Metropolitans. Well, welcome to episode 6 of the Dan Wilkins Show. Last week we interviewed John Stiglmeyer, head coach of the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, a D1 football program. But today we are interviewing Jaron Kiviat, the owner of NYM_news, a New York Mets fan page on the social media app Instagram, where he has amassed over 75,000 followers and has even met some New York Mets players and owners and everything in between. He's got a lot of influence on the app. Welcome to the show, Mr. Kiviat.
I thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored to be on today to talk Mets and social media. And yeah, let's get into it, man.
Just going back to the beginning of just everything here, when were you first interested in baseball and more specifically the Mets?
Well, I've always been interested in baseball and the Mets. Ever since I was a really young boy, I've always loved the game. And I've always particularly loved the Mets because my dad's from New York and raised me and my brother as diehard Mets fans just as he was, living in Long Island. So there was always an interest there, and then it became a reality in terms of the Instagram page in 2014. Honestly, accidentally, I was looking for a page to follow as a fan. All the pages were garbage, in my opinion, in my view. And I'm like, I'm going to do something that no one else is doing, and let's see how it goes. I rolled with it, and then the results have been great. So I'm just very fortunate.
And I mean, I had a MLB fan page for like a few weeks. It never really got off the ground. It had like 100 followers at most, and it was in 2016, and the app that I used to edit all of the pictures that I used for like news banners and stuff, it was literally like, I think it was Fonto, that free app or something. I mean,
I still use Fonto. It's a solid app, but yeah, I know the struggle of just using Fonto, believe me. I feel that.
So what was the first thing that happened to you with your page that kind of made you believe, hey, I could do this for a long time, I could gain a lot of support, that I have a real chance of having this thing come off the ground with a real success?
I don't know if there was like a particular moment. There were definitely some moments where I thought to myself, like, wow, this is unbelievable. But I'd say the first moment really of that was like July 4th, 2015. I was actually at the Mets-Dodgers game in LA because I live in LA. And I had brought a poster with all these Mets players on it. And some of the players I was going up to recognized me, they knew about the page and stuff. And they were like Jeurys Familia knew about it. And Curtis Granderson said he had seen it. And then Wilmer at the time, he followed it, I'm pretty sure. So there were some players out there who gave me some love. And it was that day where I hit 10,000 followers. And once you get the little K mark on your Instagram, once you hit the 10K, it's kind of a big deal, especially at that time. Now there's a lot more pages with 10K. At that time, it was a huge deal for me. And I think that was the moment where I realized, okay, this could be really, really something special.
And obviously with the page growing and you having a large audience to back you up and like your posts, share them with everybody, what was it like for you receiving your first sponsorship, considering what your audience was like?
Oh, it was great. For a while, it was tough to figure out how I was going to monetize the account because at the end of the day, I started a page when I was around 13 years old. I was in no position to be making money at that point in my life. But a few years later, when I was 15 or 16, I realized wow, I have a pretty nice following now. I think 15 or 16 is a reasonable time to start working and making money. So I'm like, you know what? Why not try to monetize my account? And I had done advertisements and promos and stuff like that. But I think my first official sponsorship was the one with SeatGeek. And the one with SeatGeek over the course of last season got me a lot of money. It was a great success for me. I know there's lots of YouTubers that do it as well. So SeatGeek I definitely recommend as a sponsorship if anyone's looking to get into that industry.
And I have a friend of mine who runs a Phillies fan page. I know that you're not a huge fan of the Phillies, obviously, but he has about 1,500 followers, I'm pretty sure, and he has a sponsorship with SeatGeek. and he was probably about the same age that you were when you started receiving those promos and sponsorships and all that. And I think mainly what it is that just people with less and less following, they're trying to get more and more monetization off of their content. And honestly, when you're running a fan page where I understand that there's a lot of complicated factors that go into it, but a lot of the time it is posting content and just keeping a consistent schedule. I wouldn't say it's the most excruciating thing in the world. It's not the thing that so many companies are going to be just dying for a sponsorship for. So I think it's definitely interesting how a lot of the people today that are running fan pages, they're just getting lots and lots of sponsorships just right off the bat.
Well, the whole thing is it's already established, you know what I mean? Like when I was doing it, this stuff hadn't really been done before, but you're talking about fan pages that have been, like, it's been happening for like around 5 years now. So if you're starting a page, like there's already kind of an established route. It's like gain followers, then you have SeatGeek, you have all these other platforms that other people have used in the past for sponsorships. So that's where people could go. But I think the thing I was doing was, I don't want to say like I was ahead of my time. But at the same time, like there never really been like a Mets page like like NYM News had become. So I guess like a lot of stuff I was doing had never really been done before. I've done deals with brands that like no one else has really done. I've talked to other people, like other people haven't. I met like Mets owner Saul Katz at the David Wright game because his grandson went up to me. The next thing you know, I'm sitting next to the owners of my favorite team watching David Wright's final game. Like that's surreal. Like that doesn't really happen to anyone else. So I think when you have things like that under consideration, like you really like realize like wow, this is definitely something that's like unique.
So what was your favorite like milestone that you've achieved over the course of 6 years of running a New York Mets fan page?
I don't know, it's funny because I honestly think my biggest milestone, well, first of all, the page did lead me to like a huge scholarship I got at this school I'm at in Boston. For my major sports management, I really talked about like my page's growth throughout my essay and stuff like that. And I was, I was applying to lots of sports communications and lots of sports management in schools. So I knew career-wise, I still know that this is like what I want to do. So the fact that my Instagram page that I started when I was just 13 years old ultimately ended up leading me to like basically what was a full ride scholarship to college was great for me. I think that's probably my greatest milestone. But like an internal milestone I really like was the fact that I was able to defeat Instagram not once but twice, get the page back from Instagram twice after getting disabled. There's lots of people who unfortunately are victims of the Facebook or Instagram BS where they can legally just take away your platform and not give you a reason why. And too many people like let these corporations and these entities kind of walk all over them. I was not going to do that because I worked so hard to kind of have what I have today. I wasn't just going to let Instagram take that away from me. And the fact that I was able to get it back not once but twice from Instagram for a total of like 8 months of just sheer hell being off Instagram, that's definitely something I've always been proud of.
And considering that you, like you said, were disabled from Instagram just twice over the course of this 6-year growth, just the plan of getting to where you want to be with your page, what was it like for you, like that first time that you saw that your page was no longer up?
So when it first happened, I remember specifically it was like September 2017. I was at one of my good friends' house. We're about to go to like this high school football game. It was a Friday night. We're just having a normal Friday night, what a high schooler does on a Friday night. So we're just chilling, and I go on my phone, and my Instagram's like just gone. I'm like, what? Like it logged me out. I tried logging back in, and then they were like, you have been disabled. And at that point in time, like I had no idea what the future was for like the page for me. Like I didn't know if I was going to get it back. So I was freaking out, and keep in mind, like it took 6 months. So before I got it back, I tried like literally everything. Like I tried obviously spamming whatever resource I could use to contact Instagram. It's almost impossible to contact them as it is. So I tried that. We even hired like a private agent to look into that, where he got paid like $30 to look into it, and if he couldn't help us, he would just refund us. So after like 2 weeks of that, he just refunded us. Next thing you know, it's like 6 months and the page is still gone. And I'm like, okay, we have to do something else. So we ended up actually getting a lawyer to like look into it, And I know that probably sounds weird to some people where you're like, oh, you got a lawyer for an Instagram page. But if you really think about it, like it's a lot more than just an Instagram page for me in particular. Like it ended up leading me to like a full ride scholarship for sports management. I'm now trying to use it to like break my way into the sports industry. So you're talking about like career implications here, in my view. So that's why I ended up getting a lawyer. And then magically it was brought. We sent them a letter from the lawyer, and then magically 24 hours later the account was restored. So I'm pretty sure the letter had something to do with it, but it's just ridiculous how it took 6 months. And all it really took to get back was some letter from a lawyer. You didn't really even do that much.
And I think it's just Instagram kind of being a little bit of a scaredy cat, I guess, Oh, the law's getting involved. We gotta do something right away.
Exactly.
Because,
that's what it takes. Yeah.
Yeah, you hired the private agent to get the page back. That didn't work. A private agent, if you're gonna pay them $30, it's not really gonna be good enough to convince Instagram, who's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Right. Private agent isn't really gonna...
What the private agent thing was, it was like one of these things that because we were just Googling, like, other people have had similar experiences, because, like, I had never been through that before. I had no idea what to do. And this website came up, and they were like, yeah, we have contacts, like, with every private corporation. They don't just deal with Instagram, and they were like, what you do is you pay us, we look into it, if we can't get it back, like, we refund you. So I'm like, okay, there's not really much to lose, it's just $25. So then, or $25, $30, whatever it was. So we paid them, and then they didn't get it back. So at that point, I'm like, okay, like we've tried everything at this point. Like, I think the only option now is to go legal. So we just had to do it. This was back in 2017 too. It ended up happening again this year as well. Something similar.
So what was that like the second time it happened? Were you more prepared to like deal with the situation when it happened the second time?
So definitely the second time, I was a lot like less nervous about it. Like when it happened the second, obviously I was disappointed, I was frustrated, I was a little bit worried about the future. But at the end of the day, like I knew I was eventually going to get it back, and I knew like what it took to get, like I knew like what had to be done for it to be restored. And the first thing that we did was we contacted the lawyer, because at this point we're like, all right, we're not wasting another 6 months. Like this is not happening again.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the lawyer right away. But this time they kind of ignored the letters, so I actually took matters into my own hands. I got sent home because of coronavirus. I was just at home doing this is like in March, like when it like really first started taking off in the country. So I was like just doing nothing, And what I did was I was going on LinkedIn, reaching out to like probably hundreds of Facebook or Instagram workers a day on LinkedIn, and sending them the exact same thing. And some of these people were just like engineers who had nothing to do with like being disabled. But I was just seeing like whatever I could do. Like maybe they could refer me to someone. Next thing you know, a few days after doing this, the page was restored, and the executive vice president of communications like reached out to me, and she worked under Elon Musk before that, so she's like an executive at Facebook. She's like really high up there, and she's like, "Hi, Jaron, I'm really sorry to hear about this. Your account has been restored." And I was like, "What just happened? Like what?"
Yeah.
And they didn't tell you. They never tell you why it's disabled. They never tell you like how you can prevent it from happening again. They just tell you it's disabled and it's restored. They don't tell you anything that like leads up to that. They don't tell you like anything that's like between all that. They just tell you it's disabled and restored. So it's a bit frustrating, but that just goes to show you that I don't think that social media is like the way to go in terms of building a career. It's great for like building your network, but I don't think you could like sustain a career on social media, at least in the sports world, just because like there's so much copyright infringement like in play. Like you gotta be very careful with that type of stuff.
And I mean, even considering that I make sports videos for YouTube, a lot of my videos get demonetized because I'm using MLB clips, but I'm fine with that. I'm fine with not making money off of it, considering that I have a relatively small audience. But if I get a larger audience and then I end up say just making more videos of the same type, I don't make any money, then I guess it depends on your following, and it depends on how much you care about what you actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say if you're like a small creator, just focus on the experience, man. Even if your page doesn't grow, it's still a great experience. At the end of the day, if you want to work in sports and you want to work in sports, especially at a young age, any experience you can get is good experience. And obviously, like, you're not at an age to like be interning and stuff like that, but working your way up, just having experience like with video creation and social media networking, all that type of stuff, like it's very good.
So you have So you have met players on the Mets before. What do you think was your favorite experience of that type?
So this is actually a funny story. I'm trying to remember. I think it was. I'm trying to remember the specific year. I'm pretty sure it was 2017. It could have been 2018. I'm pretty sure it was 2017 though. And I had gotten batting practice access at the Mets Dodgers game in LA because one of my family friends actually works with Josh Sadden. So we were at the game with Josh Sadden, and then Josh helped get me on the field early for batting practice. And I was just chilling there, and then Yoenis Cespedes comes up near us, and he's signing autographs and stuff. Keep in mind, Cespedes was like my favorite player. I'd wanted him to come to the Mets since 2014. I knew I always wanted him. Then when he went to the Mets, I was going crazy, obviously, and he went off in 15. And then he followed me at some point that season. So I was like, and he followed my brother too. So I just love Yoenis Cespedes. And I know all the injuries and stuff kind of ruined his reputation with the Mets, but I still deep down love the guy. Like, he's still my guy. So I was like just chilling there, it was like by the on deck circle batting practice in LA. Cespedes walks up to us. And, like, I'm trying, he doesn't really speak great English, obviously, so I'm trying to tell him about NYM News and stuff. And he's not really following. And then I hand him a business card, and I point at the logo. And he sees the NYM News logo, he recognizes it, and his whole face, like, lights up. He's like, "Oh, that's you." And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Awesome." He like, dapped me up, and then he took a picture with the card. So that was a really cool moment, because then I realized, like, dude, Cespedes, like, knows who I am. Like, he messes with the content. Like, that was just a really super cool moment. Especially for me, because I've always loved Cespedes, so yeah. That was probably like my favorite player interaction. Also, Jose Reyes, what happened with him was, that was another cool story. Basically, like, before, he had followed me for a while too, another childhood favorite player of mine, always loved Jose. So when he followed me, it was unbelievable. I was going insane. And what happened was I DM'd him a picture of me. When the Mets were in LA, like a day before, I DM'd him a picture of me. I'm like, "Jose, I'm going to be at the game near you on the field tomorrow. If you see me, like, feel free to come up. Like, I'd love to, like, meet you and stuff like that." So, like, you see, this is like not when I'm on the field. This is like when I'm just like a normal fan chilling by the dugout, doing what I can to hopefully, like, interact with some players or coaches or whatever. And Jose sees me, and he waves at me, and he does like a little, like, thing, like he recognized me, and the Mets Instagram caught it. And then after the game, like, during the game, I DM'd him. I knew he wouldn't see it until after the game, but I DM'd him, like, "Jose, like, go by the buses after the game. I'd love to, like, meet with you later." And then later, he ended up going up to me, and I actually got to meet him, and he posed with the card, all that. So it's just really cool, like, when some of your childhood heroes are recognizing you, and beyond that, like, they also, like, support, like, what you're doing content-wise and career-wise. It's just a really cool thing, and I gotta always respect Jose Reyes and Cespedes for that, man. Like, just surreal moments for me.
And when you started this page in 2014, I mean, I think it's hard to imagine for any of us when we start a page like this, we start off with a slow start, then we start off with a little bit of a slow start for just gaining followers and gaining an audience, and then a few years later, you're meeting your favorite players on a baseball field.
Oh, yeah. And when I started Page, honestly, I never thought it would get to the point where it eventually, like, became. I was just, like you said, I was just doing it, like, as a thing for my passion. Like, I always loved the Mets, always loved baseball. If you would have told me when I started Page, like, yeah, a few years from now, you'll be meeting Cespedes, Jose Reyes, Jerry Seinfeld will be following you. You'll get 70,000 followers. It'll lead to all this success, both with your page and in the business world as well. I would look at you like you were crazy, because I was just doing it as a passion.
So, what do you want to do after your college years?
I want to work in sports, particularly I want to work in Major League Baseball. I don't know if I've hinted at or made that clear throughout this podcast, but I definitely want to work in sports, and I'm already pursuing that. I'm trying to secure either a paid internship or an entry-level job for next year for my sophomore year of college. But obviously it's really hard with the pandemic. Overall, though, after college, I definitely want to work in sports. And obviously I love baseball more than any sport, so to work in Major League Baseball would be a dream for me.
And considering that you're a freshman in college, I mean, you still have some time, and I mean, you go to LaSalle University, and how is that experience working out for you?
I really liked it, honestly, going into the whole college application process. I saw myself at, like, a big, like, typical D1 sporty party school, like, on the East Coast maybe. But I was open to everything. And then the scholarship came in, and it kind of, like, decided, like, what I was going to do for me. Like, you can't just, reject a scholarship like that. So I took it, and I always loved the idea of being on the East Coast, and Boston's a great city, and it's a great college town also. Obviously hate their teams, but just that was, I was open-minded, and the people there have been great. So, yeah, much love to New England college scene. Not the sports teams, but the college team's been great.
And, I mean, that's something that I want to do because I'm 14 and I want to go to, but, like, my number one school right now that I want to go to is Syracuse. That's on the East Coast. It's just, like, it really depends on what offers you get and what opportunities you get.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, like, Syracuse was also my top school. I know they have two really, really good programs I was looking into. They have the Newhouse School of Journalism, which everyone knows about, but they have, like, this newer one, the David Fogg Sports Management School, which I was really looking at. And then they were actually – I only got rejected by two schools, and Syracuse is one of them. So that was a little bit tough for me. But, even now I'd be open to transferring to Syracuse. It's, like, always seemed like the perfect fit for me. And I feel like if you love the East Coast and you love sports and you like just like that overall scene of like having East Coast kids and kids who are into sports and stuff like that, I feel like Q's is like the perfect fit, honestly.
I can agree with that. I mean, I don't know everything about those sort of schools and their inner workings, but it seems like you got a clear path ahead of you. How do you think the Mets are going to do in 2020 if we play any baseball at all?
I mean, it's tough. First of all, we got to see what division we're playing in, because if we're sharing the same division as like some of the AL East powerhouses, along with the NL East powerhouses we already have to deal with, like it's going to be very tough for the Mets. And we also have to see how many teams they're going to allow in the playoffs. I heard that there are rumors that they may be allowing more teams in the playoff picture, so that could create some more opportunity for the Mets for sure. I will say if that AL East, NL East, like reported proposal division is actually in fact going to be the division if there is baseball this season, I think it'll be very tough for the Mets. I think that they could compete with teams like the Braves and the Rays and the Nationals and the Phillies for sure. And I don't know, the Red Sox might be decent as well. I don't think they're going to be terrible. They're not going to be that great. But let's say like three teams are allowed to make the postseason out of that AL East, NL East like combination. I feel like the Mets could sneak in there. I really do. But it just all depends. I think there's like a lot, like way too many question marks to really tell right now. But talent-wise, if we're just looking at like logistically, I feel like the Mets do have the talent to compete. Make the playoffs, we will see. I think they will definitely contend and compete, though, if there is a season in 2020.
Well, at least you were being realistic there and not just immediately saying, oh, the Mets are going to win the World Series. They're going to, they're going to have the easiest season ever. No, like, it's good at least for somebody that supports a team and has a page with a significant following for that team. At least you're being realistic and not overconfident in what could happen.
Yeah, I mean, the key is you always have to be objective, and I think part of the reason why I've been so successful on Instagram is because I've always spoke my mind, no matter whether it's positive or negative towards the team. Sometimes it kind of hurts me, if anything, but I've always been very, very genuine and honest, and everything I've always said is like truly how I was feeling about the team. And yeah, sometimes I do get carried away because I am a fan at the end of the day. But I try to keep it as objective as I can. Look at the team in many different viewpoints.
And I mean, I think that's something that every fan page that is trying to jumpstart a quote unquote career or something like that, just a following. I think that's a piece of advice that all of them need to follow. That you got to be objective and you have to be realistic with your team's expectations, with your team's success, because not everything is going to be a perfect sweep of a easy season, number one seed in the playoffs, World Series sweep, whatever you want to call it. It's not that easy to win in baseball.
And quite frankly, social media is all about reputation. Like, I know a lot of people have a really bad reputation on social media. Obviously, we know about meme culture and trolls and stuff like that. So if you are a homer and you make that very clear, and then you say some like crazy, like biased things about the Mets. Like you say, "Oh, the Mets are going to win the World Series. We're better than the Yankees. We're going to take down the Dodgers. Better than the Astros." Like that's just not a great look, and you're going to set yourself up for ridicule when the Mets inevitably don't live up to your unrealistic expectations. So I think you got to keep it as fair and honest as possible, and it's tough because like I noticed with the Mets community in particular, you have like two extremes, right? Like you have like the fans who are extremely positive, who are like, nothing can go wrong. Let's go Mets. You gotta believe. Like you gotta be a true fan. All that. And then you have fans who are on the opposite side of the spectrum, like, this team's always going to suck. I hate the ownership. I hate this team. We're never going to be good. So, and I'm just kind of like the middleman where I see both sides, and I kind of have to, like, I have to appeal to both sides while not being on one side and not being on the other side. So it's tough, but I feel like I've done a pretty good job at staying objective and, keeping it fair.
So what do you think about the owners of the Mets, the Wilkins?
Obviously, the fans don't like them, and, I think they have a fair reason to. I will say that hopefully, like, things will change soon, and they're definitely in a position to sell. So I think, more so than ever before, I feel like we could like sit back and relax, knowing that, like, at the end of the day, like, they're still looking to sell a team. Because when people were hating on the Wilkins a few years ago, I remember, like, a lot of people thought that they were going to own the team for the rest of eternity. So I think now, like, knowing that, there's light at the end of the tunnel in the sense that they're looking to sell the team. Like, I feel like fans who hate the Wilkins could like sleep at night knowing that, like, they're probably going to sell soon. It's just, the Steve Cohen thing fell through, and then the pandemic happened, so it looks tough right now. But there's no doubt that they're still in a position to sell the team, and they're probably going to do it when they can.
So what about the other end of the spectrum, the new Mets manager, Luis Rojas? What's your thoughts on that?
Personally, I'm open to it. I would have preferred a guy like Joe Girardi. I'm personally a big advocate. Like, I know, like, there's this huge trend in baseball to hire rookie managers who are really, really good with analytics and sabermetrics and knowing players, familiarity. It's more of a, like, a communicator type of role these days. But I am old school in the sense that I feel like this Mets team can win right now. And I would have loved a guy like Joe Girardi to just kind of, like, be the guy leading us into battle. We saw how successful he was with the Yankees. He was just a class act with them. In New York, the same market. So I feel like it would have been the perfect fit, and it didn't work out. And looking at it, like, now in retrospect, I feel like the Mets lucked out because I feel like Luis Rojas is going to end up being a better manager than Carlos Beltran. So in a sense, I'm kind of happy the whole thing happened with Beltran because I truly do believe Rojas will be a better manager than Beltran ever would have been. There's some familiarity there. Rojas comes from a baseball background. Obviously, his dad was a manager, and then his brother, Moises Alou, played for the Mets as well. So there's a lot of familiarity there. And it's not like this guy's an idiot. Like, he's been around the game for a while. And I'm very excited to see what he does. The players seem to love this guy, so I feel like if the players love him, we got to give him a chance as well. It's all about the players at the end of the day.
And I feel like there would have been more controversy if the Mets kept Carlos Beltran as the manager instead of firing him and replacing him with a different guy, because he was linked to that whole scandal. He was the only player named in the sign-stealing report, so I feel like it would have been a lot more controversial for the Mets to keep Beltran as opposed to having somebody else just fill in.
It would, and at the end of the day, like, what are you investing in? You're investing in a guy who's proven nothing at the major league level from a manager perspective, just like Luis Rojas. So you're going to take the guy who's proven nothing with no controversy, or the guy with controversy out the window? It's a pretty easy PR decision, which is why I always defended the Mets for... you could definitely criticize the Mets for not doing their due diligence on Carlos Beltran heading into that whole thing. They probably should have had more of an understanding of his actual involvement with the scandal before they hired him as their manager. Especially after the Mickey Callaway experience was nothing short of their own dysfunction and, in along the way. But it's whatever, man. I think they're going to be fine with Rojas. So I'm excited to see what happens with it.
It's like how David Ross was hired as manager by the Cubs, even though he has no experience managing, and I guess you could say the only reason why the Cubs hired him as a manager was just to be a sentimental piece to their team. Like, he's got no experience managing. He's probably not going to be a good manager. He's probably not even going to do all the main stuff of being a manager. He's just going to kind of stand there and be a manager in name only. It's just kind of... It really depends on who you ask, but, like, it's sentimental moves like that where you hire somebody with no managing experience and somebody that's probably destined for just a doomed managerial career. It's not really going to help your team's PR.
Yeah, but I think you have to look at the logistics of an organization. Every organization does differently, but with the Cubs in particular, the guy running the show is Theo Epstein. That's always who it's going to come down to. If Theo Epstein didn't even care about Joe Madden that much, obviously doesn't really regard the manager position that highly, he probably views it as more of a communicator type role, which is what the trend is in baseball. I'm not saying I agree with it, but it is what it is, and every team does their own thing. But I understand in the sense that GMs want, like, more authority and they really want to run the show. that's just the way it is right now. It's just a trend in the game. So we'll see if it sustains. We'll see if it changes. But there's no doubt that there's a trend with rookie managers. We just have to see what happens with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's some managers in this game that they are hired for the sense of being a popular figure who don't really have any real place in baseball's managerial world. It's just they're kind of there just for the sake of being there, and it's not really much of a, I guess you could say, much of a practical role for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's for the better or worse yet, because we just don't know. We just don't know how it's going to end up being, like this overall trend. And we've seen lots of rookie managers actually lead their team to the playoffs. I mean, and we just saw Dave Martinez in his second season with the Nationals help lead them to a World Series, which no one really saw coming. So there is some hope, and there is some promise there. There's definitely some potential. It just comes down to, like, how is like the different role going to affect what's actually happening on the field? Because at the end of the day, like, I don't really care who's manager, as long as the Mets are winning. That's all that matters. If they're not winning, then you're going to start looking at the manager and the GM and the owners and all that. But no one's going to care about that stuff when the team's winning. So when it comes down to it, it just all comes down to, like, how the team's performing.
That's a very, very good point. So, thank you for joining us, Mr. Kiviat, on episode 7 of the Dan Wilkins Show. It's definitely been a fun experience interviewing you, considering that most of the athletes or most of the guests on this show, they're athletes, they've played professionally. This is a bit of a different view. This is a view from the social media world, a view from somebody who isn't affiliated with any team and doesn't have many links to teams, despite the fact that they run a fan page. So it's definitely a unique look at the sports world. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Kiviat.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Take care, man. Appreciate it.
That concludes the Dan Wilkins Show. We'll see you guys next time.